Welcome everyone to another edition of Your Impact Attack. That's right, it's Your Impact Attack. And even if you wanted to hear us talk about the Royal Rumble, I'm sorry, this is the Impact Attack. You're in the wrong place. Hopefully you caught our HMG's very special smack attack just yesterday with some surprise fun guests with Enright, and you had RBV, and you had Jimmy T from the PWC, and our own Dr. Michael Jargo. So if you didn't see that, channelattitude.com, and it may still be up on YouTube right now, but yeah, definitely a lot of fun. But I missed out on that one. It was one of the many shows or the few shows I don't do. And who am I? I'm Jamie the Vet Williams, and of course, with me as always on the Impact Attack. I couldn't do the Impact Attack without Brandon. No, literally, he's driving. He's got the keys. Brandon, how are you doing?
I'm doing super. Thank you for asking.
All right. And did you watch the Royal Rumble?
I didn't. I just kind of followed along with it because, again, it was really going to be super predictable, and I wasn't expecting them to pull out very many surprises. And I wouldn't have been disappointed.
That's right. I think this was a year of Royal Rumbles where if you are one of those people that tunes in around this time to see what kind of surprises that they're going to pull and set up for WrestleMania, you would probably be very, very disappointed in this year's Rumble. If you just wanted to watch another WWE show because you're always watching WWE shows, I mean, it was fine, I guess, for that. But yeah, if you were hoping that The Rock was going to show up, or Stone Cold Steve Austin, or even those outside internet things like, oh, Jay White might show up. Oh no. Or even Impact's own Matt Cardona. Is Matt Cardona gonna show up? Well, his wife did. But he didn't. So probably disappointed if you're one of those just care about the surprises type people. But I want to hear what the chat thinks. And if you'd like to acknowledge them before they tell us what they think, and guys, we're probably going to have room for another AMA at the end of this thing, so get your questions ready now and think about them all throughout the show. But yeah, who do we got watching us here right now?
We got the usual gang. We got Buckshot Kid. We got Lab Rat. We got Elizabeth Canada Spaceman checking in from the space station. Lab Rat, of course, taking time off from getting tested on. Javi Uchida. Hatebot. Get me Hatebot, damn it.
Ding dong. Yeah, well, of course, Liz was in in the Royal Rumble. She wasn't in the Women's Rumble, but she was in the building in San Antonio. And she provided me a detailed, well, not detailed, but it was a, let's say, a detailed overview. It was an overview that was detailed with some special anecdotes, but a overall recap and review sort of thing. I'm gonna read that in full on the Next Level Wrestling review this Wednesday, because I know Ray's gonna want to talk about the Royal Rumble, if for no other reason than to bitch about how much it sucked and how he hated it. So we'll share that with Big Ray and John Hartnett on Wednesday. So stick around with us for that one too. But yeah, but she's saying here, like, nobody in the arena was excited about the Women's Rumble. It was weird to see, like, people. This is always my least favorite part of the Rumble. Just having on the talent side, I feel like I always hate that moment when they have somebody that's supposed to be a surprise, or like, the focus is on them. When that countdown clock hits, everybody's looking at that tunnel like, who's coming out? And then if it's somebody that they either don't know or don't care, and then I feel so bad for that person. Like, it seemed like on TV, it seemed like no one really knew who Chelsea Green was, really, especially not as Chelsea Green. But I mean, there may have been something in the building. Liz can tell us about that, but it just didn't come off like that, and I just felt bad. Like, she got over, she did her thing, her usual crazy, didn't even barely get in the Rumble. I think she had like probably a record-setting speed elimination, like even faster than a bushwhacker.
At least for the women's, for sure.
Yeah. So, but yeah, or anybody from NXT or anybody that was like even just recently came back, like a Tegan Nox. Like, what is somebody supposed to pop for Tegan Nox, dude? You haven't even had her on SmackDown for the past 2 weeks, it seems like. So, how are why are we supposed to care if you're in this now? We don't think you're gonna win. So, I always feel bad about that part of the Rumble, the people that just get no reactions coming out, you know. So, but yeah, Chelsea got more of a pop than anyone of most of the chicks. And the guys in my row were all about Piper Niven, Elizabeth said. That was another nice surprise. The expunging of Dewdrop and the return of Piper Niven. I'm sure this was like promised to her the instant Triple H took over. He just wanted to, ease it in slowly. But yeah, overall there was the Rumble surprises, of which there were none, including the winners, really. There was also, the big deal with the main event and Sammy and the Bloodline. And, I was thinking that we could have another good year of this, and they're already taking it away. So for whatever reason that they pulled the trigger immediately on this, now we just have to stick with typical pro wrestling, WWE creative. This is, we have to do this because this is just what wrestlers do. We can't think of any nuance in our storytelling or anything. So we're just going to do what we're just going to do the only thing that we know, and turn people on people. I was not happy with it. I see a lot of, Brandon, a lot of people seem to have polarized opinions on the Royal Rumble. Like, some of them were tweeting things like, this is amazing, and if you don't like it, you're an idiot. Other people are like, this is the worst shit I've ever seen, and if you like it, you're an idiot. Like, I seen on my own personal timeline of people that either, we follow each other or whatever. Like, I'm seeing these completely two different opinions on this overall show. Did you see the same thing? And did you have any thoughts about them just pulling Sammy out of the Bloodline this early?
A lot of feedback I saw was mostly positive. And as far as like them pulling the trigger on getting Sammy out in the turn, my theory is I think that The Rock is good to go for Mania, and they're kind of working it. Like, I think they're doing kind of a different kind of work while getting the actual media involved. Like, this whole thing of him not being in shape, and I think, didn't Reigns take a shot at him after that?
I don't know about any shot.
I know somebody like kind of took a slight dig, so it's kind of making me think, okay, I think they're going to try working the media and get them involved to try to get more coverage on this on WrestleMania.
Well, the only thing I saw Roman Reigns say was when he was on the Tonight Show and Jimmy asked him about it, and he said, Roman just said that, there's weight training and there's nutrition, but the conditioning for wrestling takes longer to get into. So if anything, he was making excuses for The Rock in public on live television that has a much bigger viewership than anything the WWE does. So, I mean, that doesn't seem like something a potential opponent would do if you're trying to work an angle, personally. But yeah, that's the only thing I've seen him say. Maybe somebody else said something. But yeah, just watching it, he wasn't really in his heel character on that show. So, and he played Password with Tariq and Jimmy and Claire Danes. So very good. If you didn't check that out, check that out. But I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I think to me, if I had to guess, I'd think that The Rock wants to distance himself from all of this as much as he can, and the only reason that he would even want to be involved with any of it is to promote the XFL on television when he gets a chance. But I think as The Rock, you could go on many more programs that are way more viewed than like you tell me he couldn't get on the Tonight Show and talk about the XFL. That would do more for him and getting the XFL to be watched than anything on wrestling. I mean, the wrestling fans, they already know what The Rock is doing. So if The Rock is starting a football league or restarting it for the third time now, if The Rock is doing that, the wrestling fans know. They know the XFL is on. They're not going to watch. Some of them may watch it just because The Rock is the owner of it, but I don't know if they think that he's going to be on the field or what they think. But trust me, they will abandon watching the XFL pretty soon after it starts, if they ever start at all. The only people that you could get is people that just need to know that there's extra football after the NFL. And I don't think going to wrestling shows that aren't watched by people is the way to do that, personally. But who am I to advise the great one? I'm just some guy here on a podcast. So, The Rock can do whatever he wants, but I think all the people that just assume that he and Roman Reigns are going to have a match are just trying to speak it into existence, because they're probably the same people that thought, all these different surprises were going to be at the Rumble. Like, people are just now on the internet, they're just going out and saying things, and they don't need to verify it. And I'm talking about supposed doctors and scientists now. Forget about wrestling, right? Anybody can just say things on the internet. That's the beauty of it, the beauty and the curse of it. So if it gets enough traction, then people just go with it, and they just start assuming that what they saw somewhere on somebody's random post on Facebook or wherever else is the gospel. And it's just not the case. That's just a long-winded way of saying, telling The Rock not to touch this mess. But I mean, yeah. And so now we had, you threw away an extra year's worth of great television with Sami Zayn that could have been building to another Rumble and WrestleMania, because we just got him in there and we were just starting to enjoy it. And now we don't get to enjoy it anymore. And we had the fight of him to get accepted by the bloodline and then immediately kicked out. It's just, I'm sorry, that's not what I wanted to see out of this.
Yeah, let them go on some adventures first.
Mm-hmm. And Javi's taking a shot saying that Ved is just salty that the Niners got bounced. But let me tell you something, brother. The Niners get what they deserve, all right? Like, after the treatment that they've given to their quarterbacks in the past, especially by the fan base as well, like, they were, as far as I'm concerned, kind of like, I heard somebody say, they're playing with house money. I was hoping that the 49ers would have like a 0-17 season, after the way they treated Jimmy Garoppolo. So I really don't give a fuck what happened to the Niners. But that being said, go Chiefs. So yeah, any other things going on in the world, or any other things you want to comment on before we jump into this delicious episode of Impact Wrestling?
Yeah, I do have one thing for Milk Carton Minute. Where are the Death Dolls pre-tapes at?
Oh, so we're extending it to concepts and not just people now. Okay. Have you seen this pre-tape? Yeah, I saw it a few weeks ago. Where is it now? I don't know. Where are the Death Dolls pre-tapes? Well, it seems like Impact is doing like, not like a total shakeup, but it seems like every taping cycle, you never know who may be or may not be coming back anymore. So it looks like they're always like making little adjustments here and there. Sometimes they bring back lights. Sometimes they don't. We'll see how that looks going forward in 2023. We still have a higher percentage of non-light shows than light shows so far, but I mean, I like where it's going. But yeah, the Death Dolls, like, they kind of, you would think that you'd want more, let's say more pre-tapes than wrestling from them, right? I
Right, because
mean,
that's basically what brought them into the dance. That's what got them over was their character and how they interacted and the dynamic between each other.
yeah.
Like you
So I
had the
mean,
like the
yeah,
whole thing of like Rosemary just being like absolutely irritated by how bubbly and upbeat that Jessica and Taya are, but they're her best friends and she loves them, and she puts up with it.
yeah. And I guess they resolved that because you know you know they won the knockouts titles or whatever. So I mean, I guess that was good enough for Rosemary. Like that's all she needed to see. That they were able to get it done. But I mean, even if you move on from that, you can always still have those like those little sprinkled in backstage things where you just see like a throwaway line here or there or two that you know are meant to get like a laugh or something from Rosemary, some reaction to something that Jessica's doing, or maybe Jimmy Jacobs like me felt that this this whole Jessica thing was annoying and she wasn't pulling it off. I don't know. I don't know. It could be, but yeah, I'm not really sure where it is. I will say that personally, I'm not missing it.
Well,
But
we did see a little bit of their personality in that come out a little bit tonight during their tag team title match.
yeah, maybe they feel like that's enough. I mean, if you're gonna have a tag team title match, maybe we don't need a backstage. And maybe next week, since they probably won't be wrestling, that we will get a backstage. So, you know, I guess we'll just have to see. But I guess we can put Chelsea Green found, right?
Yep.
Like found San Antonio. We know where she is. So we'll see what happens after that. Or did she just pop up just to do that? Nah, she's supposedly signed, right? I mean, I don't know. You can't really tell because people can just say that she's signed, right? There doesn't have to be any proof. They could just say that, right? So I guess we'll see. If she's on WWE TV for 4 weeks in a row, then I'll start thinking maybe she's signed. But yeah, well, I guess we should just get right into it. This is Impact Wrestling for whatever date it was. And we're going to start right off the bat. I mean, of course, after we recap last week, we're going to start with the X Division Championship match of Trey Miguel defending against Mike Jackson. That's right, the 70-plus-year-old Mike Jackson.
Who? Mike Jackson.
Should I even dignify this with commentary? Like, this is the same. Like, look, it's like a line I'm walking where I don't want to be disrespectful to a veteran who's still able to get in the ring and move around at his age, you know, and like this is the minimum that I'm sure everybody should have expected from like a Ric Flair's last match or something, is this level of like athleticism and awareness. But so there's that, but then there's the other part of me that's like, Trey Miguel has to go out there and try to sell for this guy that doesn't look like he could break an egg if he fell on it, with his working stuff. This is in that like sort of intergender ridiculousness like area here. It's like a weird area. I just don't know how to feel about it, other than it just feels wrong to me.
It's almost kind of like Mike Jackson's. I mean, I don't want to sound disrespectful, but he's kind of like almost a meme a bit. Like the meme of an old wrestler getting in there and doing the old timer wrestling moves, and spots, and then doing the oldest school.
Yeah, right. Like,
I mean,
oh, look at him. He can embarrass the business by holding onto a guy's hand, and the guy has to just walk along with him. And yeah, bro, if you can't do it without holding the guy's hand, then just don't do it. I'm glad he actually pulled him down after 2 rope walks instead of letting him go all the way around the ring like they did on the pre-show for Hard to Kill. But yeah, just having to do that, like, and not only that, but like, you feel like you would hit this guy one time and that'd be it. Like there's no, you know what I mean? Like it's just, it's reality. It's actually reality. In fact, in the fake wrestling match, if he went down and broke like something or whatever, then that would just be because of his age or something, right? Like,
yeah, you actually be kind of scared to fight this guy. Like, oh shit, I might hurt him. Like, really hurt this man.
Right. I also wonder if Mike Jackson was ever a good worker, because some of the stuff he does in this match looks so bad. I'm like, you could be any age and not have this be the shits. You know what I mean? Like even if you are 70, you could still kind of do this. So I don't know if, like, I really don't know if he was ever good. I mean, obviously he was never like, this isn't like a situation like Mickey Rourke in The Wrestler or something where he's like, he was once great and had to do this. And no one ever really cared about Mike Jackson. I'm pretty sure he was a job guy his whole career. But some of those job guys from back in his era were job guys because they didn't get smartened up and they never really learned to work. So all they would do is go in there, and as far as they knew, they were just going to take moves from guys like the Barbarian for 6 minutes while Tony Schiavone talked at the desk or something, you know, like, and they didn't need to know how to wrestle. They were just going to get manhandled. So some of those guys were never, like, they were never good ever, you know, like when you think about those classic job guys, like the Mulkey brothers, or I'm thinking of NWA terms here. The job guys that they use in the WWF were usually pretty good workers other places. But when you'd watch, like, you know, World Championship Wrestling on the Superstation, like some of those guys, like, I swear they just put a janitor in tights and let, you know, like, they just let Ole Anderson fucking shoot on him for a while.
Can you bump or I get in the ring for a few minutes?
Yeah, pretty much. So, and the guy probably said no when you asked him. It's like... So is Mike Jackson one of these, and he's never good, and it took him 70 years to even get this good? I don't know. I really don't know. All I know is this stunk. And it after the match, Trey Miguel looks for spray paint under the ring, but instead he finds Crazy Steve, and then Crazy Steve has his own spray paint, and he tags himself with Trey Miguel's tag on the chest. And then Taurus also shows up, and then Trey Miguel runs away through the crowd. So I don't know who they're saying is next. Is Crazy Steve next? Does he get a shot? Does he have to? Does Trey Miguel have to go through Crazy Steve to get to Taurus, or like what are they doing here? Or is Crazy Steve just always there because he's the handler of the Minotaur there? Not sure. What did you think of this?
I mean, I dug it. I mean, Crazy Steve tagging himself, kind of creative mind games, messing with Trey.
Okay.
Of course, but like you said, where does it go? Who is the match with?
I don't know. Why choose? Just have 2 matches. Or a triple threat match. Or whatever. They're saying Boogs is back on Monday Night Raw. Just in time to miss the Rumble. Boogs is back. You don't think you could have had him as one of those?
Like, obviously.
I mean, why are we having people debut after a Rumble? Isn't that supposed to... You know what? Next is Josh Alexander with Gia and no music underneath. He gets interrupted by Burt Macklin. And Burt Macklin says a bunch of stuff, like, hey, I get it. I'm not in the 6-shooter match because I'm not a former world champion. But he basically essentially says that, you know, your boy Scott isn't here to protect you anymore. So there's a threat leveled at Josh Alexander, our champion. Refresh my memory. What happened to Scott D'Amore? Why isn't he there?
Bubba took him out, or Bully took him out.
Yeah, what did he do to him?
I want to say put him through a table.
Oh, well, that ended D'Lo's pretty much career in life, right? So I could see how he would still not be here after this.
Well, we did see D'Lo come back for one night in Aces and Eights. Maybe we'll see him come back one night as coach to more with Petey and Eric.
Right. Was that his way of getting off of TV? Like, oh, you hurt me, so I'm never coming back. I'm not going to do my job anymore. I'm hanging up the headset. Um, I just, it just seems silly. It seems like these are the things that would happen, and then the person would just be back next week annoyed, just like they are in every other wrestling show. You know, put somebody else through a table. I guess if you're overweight and in management, and you go through a table, just all that the force of you crashing down through the table onto either the concrete or the hard ring mat. That's probably just too much, right? So I don't know. I'm just making sure.
He's fat.
Is this not a job you could do from home too? I mean, your headset shows that most of it is remotely done because you never take it off unless you get really serious. But like, yeah, it's just, we all learned to work from home in the past few years. So, I mean, I feel like Scott could still be he could be a Zoom general manager or whatever. I don't know.
Anonymous GM. We had somebody doing the GM from a laptop.
Yeah,
what,
exactly.
14 years ago?
Yeah, we've done that. There's a precedent for this. Now we could just actually know who's on the laptop.
Yeah, it's displayed on the screen. That's all you got to do.
It's all you got to do, but we're not going to do that. So then Chris Sabin warms up, and then Rich Swann warms up, and then we get the Good Hands. So they're actually using this name now. It's actually on the graphic. The Good Hands versus Kushida and Kevin Knight. So I'm going to just take a guess and say this is your first look at Kevin Knight because I don't think you watched the Best of Super Juniors Tag League in New Japan. And I don't think you've been keeping up with New Japan Strong here in the States. But, Scott Woodford's here with some hot news. He's going to meet Moose this week. Well, be sure to tell Moose about the Impact Attack. Man. Yeah, tell Moose about the Impact Attack and make sure that he listens every week. So Kevin Knight, this was quick work for the K team. But did you have any overall impressions of Kevin Knight, this match, anything going on here with this?
I just question the booking of you got this new team, you establish them, and their first actual match with the new moniker, and they're going under to guys who you don't know what their commitment to your company is. You don't know if you're going to keep using them going forward or what their schedule is even going to look like.
Well, they're Good Hands. If their name wouldn't even make sense if they won matches.
Good point.
and we know that their commitment, the Kevin and Kushida's commitment to Impact is only to come in and beat guys like this. That's the commitment they have to Impact. So I'm for it. But yeah, it wasn't a very long match either way. It was just a match to get some visibility out there and get just something to keep the show moving. I like things like this. I think we talked about the Royal Rumble earlier, and we kind of talking about Raw a little bit because people are watching it live as we're recording it. Raw is just such a slog to watch, and one of the reasons is because you have these long segments or involving these people when you have many more people on the show waiting in the wings not being used. So I think that if Raw was chopped up into more digestible segments, where you could have just a match to get somebody's face on TV, but not go very long, it'd be like the entrance would be 10% of the match, just a real quick couple of minutes just to get somebody out there. That's just as good as somebody doing a 30-second 1 minute vignette or whatever. It's just to keep people's name out there, but it's for the people in the arena they get to see a little bit of action and not just have to watch the Tron. You know what I mean? Like, when you go to a wrestling show, like, I don't know about you, but I don't go to a wrestling show to watch TV. So I don't like when they have like a ton of, pre-tapes and stuff up on the screen. A few short ones is okay, but if I want to see somebody, like if I paid to see somebody, I expect to see them there in person. That's what I want to see, because I could see them at home on TV anytime, or I could look them up on the internet at my leisure. So that's the philosophy there. And a little match like this is just get Kevin Knight out there, show him some people. He may have something to do going forward. Both these guys live in the States, so Kushida actually has to take the Japan trip now, instead of, like, say, the opposite, where the Japanese guys have to take the American trip. Kushida still lives here, so working with the LA dojo, it's just a quick, shot over to Atlanta, where they're taping this, to get a couple matches or something in, and then he can go back to LA. Anything else before we move on?
No, it's a good little get over match.
Yeah.
With a couple of good hands.
Yeah. And Media M5 is calling for the firing of Kushida and to cancel his visa. He doesn't need a visa. He lives here. Knight is Grisham with hair. No, Knight is actually taller than 5 foot. So right off the bat, that's not correct. I just had to immediately correct cranky old Media M5. So Santino shows Giselle her partner, and Jay Vidal marks out. So we don't know who it is, but they see it. Giselle doesn't seem that impressed. But yeah. And let's see. Mickey and Jordan Grace have a chat. And in this, the key thing here in this is that Jordan acknowledged the tap out. We discussed it on Hard to Kill, where Mickey clearly tapped out. The announcers didn't seem to make a big deal out of it. The referee didn't do anything about it. There was no pro wrestling, oh my God, there's a controversy, overacting involved in this. It just looked like she tapped out, and I was like, what was that? And maybe even some of the people in the crowd were like, huh? But they actually did talk about it here. So I don't know if that was something that they had to write in after the fact to explain whatever the hell Mickey was doing, or if that was always the plan to give Jordan Grace an out. But again, normally wrestling is not that subtle. Remember, they buried a man in the desert and he came back weeks later spitting up sand. So it doesn't seem like that level of subtle storytelling is their forte. I feel like they would have mentioned it if that was a planned thing. But what do I know? Again, just some guy. But yeah, what did you think about that? Did you notice that? And
I did, and I think where it's going to end up leading is probably, and where it needs to go is a Jordan turning heel. I mean, she's done everything she can as a baby face right now, and kind of gotten pretty stale, honestly, character wise. Like, what left is there for her to do right now as a baby face?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't know what's left. But I know what's next. It's the Death Dolls versus Giselle and her mystery partner, which is
Tara,
or Victoria, for those of you who remember her WWE run. Yeah. Spoiler alert, their partnership doesn't work out. But I mean, Tara was there. We saw her there with prominently featured during Mickey's championship match, and in the dressing room beforehand, and with Raven there and everything. So, that's Hard to Kill I'm talking about. So we knew she was around there for those shows and those tapings. But she gets back in the ring here. So yeah, well, I'll let you go first on this match if there's anything you want to say about it.
Oh, there is one thing I've been noticing about Giselle and her performances. Like she, what's my point? No, let's back up. Something just seemed kind of off, and like it kind of came across the night when she was being arrogant and disrespectful towards Tara, and is that it comes across forced, like she's trying to be like the arrogant, vain, mean girl, but it's just. I mean, then this could just be me. It just to me, it just feels forced. Like that doesn't really feel to me like who she is. So she doesn't seem like a vain, arrogant type person. It seems like
And
she's
that's
trying.
Giselle you're talking about.
Yes.
Okay. Really? I kind of thought.
I think a lot of
Kinda
it too is
sounded-
like because I see a lot of like this is just me personally, like a lot of like the stuff that she would do in the ring to kind of force that kind of persona. So I did the same kind of things in the ring too. That I got the same kind of feeling of, oh, I had to kind of do this when I was in there to try to force something or force an emotion, force a personality trait.
Okay. So you're saying that's more so in the matches
Yes.
that's coming across.
Yes, like when it's like, backstage produced, like nailing it.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, that's, I guess so. Maybe it wouldn't come across as well if it wasn't a little bit of playing to the back row for the live crowd, but I don't know. I guess you're right. I think this is just like just another pro wrestling trope though, like the whole I'm not going to tag my partner in.
Yes.
So it's like
Like
what else can you do?
Right, we've seen this like whole thing played out a million times before. But at least it seems like her arrogance and the vanity just builds and more. It's like, okay, you actually have like a legit legend in women's wrestling as your partner. You're just being this stuck up, rude, disrespectful, like this person's beneath you. And I mean, at least she's been building, and I mean, I'm not taking anything away from the effort. I mean, she is absolutely doing an amazing job. It's just in the ring, it feels forced.
Okay. Well, there's a note for Giselle. Hopefully Moose will pass that along. So now, yeah, and as far as Tara is concerned, one of my favorite people I ever met in wrestling. I just have to tell this story. When I was in Louisville, she had a pizza place, like her own, like her and her husband owned it. It was called Fat Tony's. So I don't know if that was a Simpsons reference, but I'll just pretend that it is. But yeah, so she had a pizza place, and I remember this one time. So like my tag team partner and I went there, and we ordered a pizza, and she was actually there, like that. She was actually there at the pizza place, working that night. So anyway, we started talking to her, and she was just absolutely the nicest, coolest person you could ever want to meet, which is usually my experience with all the women that I ever met. They're all like really cool. Maybe they're bitches to each other, but to me, they were always like really nice and sweet. But yeah, so anyway, we sat there, we were talking, and then our pizza was ready, and then like she like gave us the pizza, and then we were talking some more, and we just kept talking, and then she was like, "Oh my God, you guys, pizza's getting cold. Let me put it in the oven for you." And so like we just ended up talking for like an hour, it felt like. And it was that was just having a conversation with somebody that, I mean, we were basically strangers, but we just knew who she was because she was who she was. And nothing awkward about it. There was no like, it wasn't markish. It was just talking, and it was really cool. And she was really cool. She'll always be over with me for being cool. But that's my story. We eventually did take the pizza home, and it was pretty good. So there's that. I mean, it wasn't like exactly hot and fresh, but still pretty good. All things considered, for being cold and reheated and slightly colder again. But yeah. So wonderful lady, and she probably didn't need to be in this match, but it was nice, just to, if that's what she wanted to do, it was nice that she got to do it.
Just advice, getting some really good advice,
That's right.
as we like to say around here.
Yeah. Oh, you're talking about, certainly not talking about Tara.
Oh no.
No advice there. Well, the chat's got their own side conversation going on while I'm telling stories. But anyway, Rhino is doing Stevie Richards Fitness in the back. And then we get a tarot card reading from Taylor. Apparently, her future has more Killer Kelly in it. So,
And do you really need to be doing this at the exact same time they're doing this with Scarlett over on SmackDown?
yes, you do. Is she doing it? Because she ain't doing it. Like, she's really not doing it. In fact, they can't even get consistency on what they are doing week to week. Sometimes they don't show up at all. But yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if this. I guess this stuff is working. Maybe, I don't know. I don't really care. What about you?
I mean, it is definitely different, and props to Taylor for changing it up and trying something new and trying to reinvent herself. But we'll see where it goes. Just I don't know what the thinking was like. No, why there's nobody to say, hey, they're kind of doing that exact same thing over on SmackDown. What about some other witchy things you can do for a vignette?
I don't know. Maybe we should ask Isla Dawn over on NXT. So next is so Dave LaGreca is still here, and he's talking to Santino backstage, and then Bully Ray shows up and basically punks Dave LaGreca. He says everything except yes sir to everything he says, but it's kind of funny, and it's not played for laughs, but it's funny anyway. Yeah, so Bully confronts Santino about the Golden 6-shooter match, asking why he's not in it, and Santino just tells him, "You lost. You just lost. You had a title match and you lost." He repeats that several times. Bully says that he doesn't need him to tell him that he lost. He knows he lost. So now that that's cleared up that he lost, he could take a fucking hike, and he's like, Santino's like, how do you deal with that? And he's like, I don't know. The only person I know who can deal with that is Tommy. So I don't know. It doesn't look like Tommy's dealing with it either, but I guess that's just supposed to be some line to set up some match with them probably in the future. So what do you think?
That just seemed really awkward and out of place, and like Bully just kind of walking off, tail between his legs. That just seemed really out of character, unless he's got something planned he's going to try on the next episode.
I don't know why that guy still has a job. I would have fired him. How dare you put your hands on people, like
And
Scott D'Amore?
right, and perfect logic in that you just had a title shot and lost, back of the line, man.
Yep. And Santino's just, dude, we don't really talk that much about Santino, but he's everything he does is so just about perfect. Like, he knows when to turn it completely up with the Italian ridiculousness, but then he also, when he's in a scene like this where he's supposed to be serious, like, he's so natural and believable in everything that he does and says. Truly one of the great utility players in wrestling of all time. And it doesn't,
And ironically, who was also another great utility player? Ernest Miller.
You think?
I mean, you could really fit him into any spot you could. I mean, he could get heat, get face reaction, and from what I understand, I mean, I think he had to have drawn ratings because they put him on TV a lot at the end.
Well, I don't know about that, but to me, it just seemed like he came in and danced a lot. And
the one thing I will not forget that made me realize how great he was he It was when they set up the match between Booker T and Lance Storm. Crowd originally booed, like they were booing the shit out of it. He turned around and said, "Well, you know what? I want to see Booker T kick Lance Storm's ass." Crowd reacted a complete 180.
That was Ernest Miller that did that?
Yep.
Well,
yeah, he's like, hold on. I want to see this because I want to see Booker T beat his ass, and all of a sudden, the crowd's like, okay.
Yeah. Well, WCW crowds back then were like, I don't even know how you got them in the building, but I assume they showed up miserable and they were just waiting to like something. So, but I think I don't look at Ernest Miller the same way. I think Ernest Miller's a gimmick. I just really think the gimmick was great, and I think he was a very entertaining person. But at the same time, that's all he could do. You couldn't put him out there to have a good match with anybody. You couldn't have him be dead serious. You couldn't have him be, you could have him be comedy. You could have him be, like just a ridiculous human being. And wear red shoes.
I get what you were saying when you said great utility. Okay.
Yeah, Santino can literally do anything you need him to do in the professional wrestling business. If you want him to sit down and do commentary, he can do that. If you want him to wrestle, he can do that. If you want him to get a guy over, he can do that. If you want him to get over a guy, you can do that. Like he can be a main event. He can be an opening match. He can do anything you need to do. But when you got the kind of training like we got, that's very easy. I'm not saying I could do that, but I mean, that's what I was trained to do. Like the training I got, the same training that Santino got, the same training that, Cena, Orton, like Lesnar, all those guys got. They all got this. The training was designed to make you a Swiss Army knife in the professional wrestling business and do anything at any level. Whether you made it that far was up to you and a lot of circumstance and luck. But ultimately, you wouldn't fail because you weren't prepared, is the point. So Santino, even though he was played up for comedy most of his run, he was originally, when he got the contract, when he got the call, when he was signed, he was doing like a gimmick, like it was what would you call it? It was like a Russian MMA fighter gimmick.
Oh, Sambo fighter.
Kinda, yeah. And he would like he used the theme from Conan the Barbarian as an entrance music, and he was coming out and beating guys in like a few seconds. He was like squashing guys, and he beat him with a standing armbar that he called the Riddle of Steel, which was funny, another Conan reference. So like that was his whole gimmick, and it was essentially, it's what they ended up using for. It was kind of like the Sylvester Terkay and what's his name, Pope,
Elijah Burke when he was there.
Yeah, Elijah Burke. So that whole gimmick where it was that, like a fighter with a guy that held a towel around his neck, like that was the gimmick that Santino was doing, and then they called him up and they had him do the Milan Miracle and so on and so forth, and that was it. But that's the whole thing. He was doing so many different things, but even to take it another level, when he was doing the Russia Shoot Fighter gimmick, but when he would have practice matches and stuff, he was doing a funny version of his Russian character. He would be he would be joking around, like if I'm in a match with him or whatever, and he tells me to if he picks me up for a body slam and tells me to scoot down his back and tag out or whatever, he's like in character, just saying like, what the fuck? Like, it's just, even though it's just the students watching, but he's that into it. He was always cracking people up. So anyway, that's the whole Santino. Santino is a real shooter, says the crowd. I thought Santino was a judo guy. He is a judo guy, but I'm just saying, he was doing that gimmick, and the only Russian martial art anybody knows is Sambo. I'm not sure if it's a real martial art, but he does it. He's that's the idea. But yes, his actual background is judo. So And apparently he's a power walker. All right, everyone else is warming up, right? Like we've seen these people, like we talked about Stevie Richards Fitness with Rhino. We've seen, Rich Swann jumping up and down and getting ready and pumped and whatever. And what does Sami Callihan do? He's back there with the design. And this is one of there's only like 2 instances of lighting on this show. This is one of them. They have that red light, the red spotlight sitting in the back, like shining towards them, which is that's a design thing to do. So I'm not going to treat that like any of the normal pre-tapes that just stick the shit in. Still stupid, but yeah, Fedor was a Sambo champion. Go look up the Sambo championships and find where he won that. So so they're doing this. And Sammy, what he does is he paces back and forth once, and then he like bends over, and it looks like he's trying to catch his breath. So this is how he gets ready for a title match. Now I know what he thinks he's doing. He's trying to do like the intense focus face, because he's like, he's like shaking and his eyes are crazy, and he's like. But what it looks like, if you weren't paying attention and you only saw this off to the side, was it looked like he took 2 steps and then lost his, and got blown up and then had to bend over and try to struggle to breathe. That's what it looked like. So I thought that was funny. But someone in New Japan is doing race walking to the ring. Yeah, it's Kenta. Guys, now if you want to see the real greatest comedy wrestler in wrestling right now, yes, it's Kenta. Yes, that legendary wrestler that was the same guy that was kicking people's heads off back in the early 2000s and all this other stuff, and then came to WWE and got hurt a bunch of times, and then got his thunder stolen by Asuka and Nakamura and all the other new toys that came in after him when he was supposed to be the big Japanese signing. Well, if you look at him now, he is now the premier comedy wrestler in pro wrestling today. And he could also still kick your head off.
That's what I always hate when people would bury like tough guy wrestlers when they get like gimmicks like that, when it's like the whole like idea behind this thing is like, yeah, it's supposed to be funny, but the danger is like, but they can kick your ass too.
Yeah, it's having more than one dimension. Like, why would a comedy wrestler be there if he can't do anything? Like, why would he even have that job? Why wouldn't he just be a comedian? Right?
Like the whole thing, like people shit on Tank Abbott with 3 count, but the whole thing that could be summed up is like this little exchange between Mark Madden and Tony Schiavone on commentary, where Mark Madden was burying 3 count, and Tony Schiavone's like, or Tony Schiavone was bitching about 3 count, and Mark Madden says, "You go tell Tank that." Well, anyway, back to the match.
Yes. Well, yes. Not that was the impetus probably behind giving him that gimmick, but nonetheless, you've been watching a lot of WCW late 2000s, haven't you? This is your second anecdote about late era WCW here.
Well, we also had Ernest Miller on the show last week, so he's still a little fresh in the mind.
I see. Well, you know who else is fresh? Tasha and Savannah. All right, so that was not a good transition. They're not that fresh, actually. And a matter of fact, they may know it, right? Because here they're with Gia and no music underneath. And Gia addresses the tag team losses that they've been piling up. And Tasha says, "This isn't working." And then she's like, "What isn't working?" "All of it." And then walks off. And then Savannah looks, and then she walks off. So maybe it isn't fresh. Maybe they're just not fresh anymore. Maybe it's time for a change. Are you ready for the breakup of Tasha and Savannah?
Much needed. Much needed. Problem is where are they going with it? Are they just going, "All right, see ya," like it's kind of insinuated right here?
Yes. Well, the danger is that Savannah is the cannibal, so she might eat Tasha Steelz at a Waffle House. So anyway, yeah, so there's that. Next match, Major Players versus Bullet Club. And you can really kind of, in this, you can really see like the height difference, and in some cases just the overall body size difference. like Zack Ryder here. I might as well get used to calling him that because it won't be long. Zack Ryder is so much bigger than everybody in this match, including his own tag team partner. Like he just looks like he needs to get out of here. But anyway, I don't have much to say about the match. They almost double pinned Cardona here. The club, the Bullet Club, they do a thing where like Ace Austin kind of takes him down and then, or no, Chris Bay takes him down with like a sunset flip type deal. And then like Ace Austin like flips over him again. And I almost thought for a second, I had to run it back. I was like, did they both pin him? Did the referee count the pin with both these guys? But then in the background, you can see Chris Bay, like he runs over to intercept Brian Myers from breaking it up. So he wasn't there, but it did look for a second like they both pinned him. And yeah, so Cardona's upset. Then Joe Hendry appears even though no one said his name. And then he follows up his big hit of Dancing Moose with a new fresh, now this is fresh, single.
Certified fresh.
Yeah, which can only, I guess we can only call it Edge's Bitch, right? So unlike the Moose song, which was just Joe Hendry's song with lyrics about Moose, this is like a completely new original song, generic, yes, but the lyrics are about, you know, it kind of sounds like what song does it sound like? It sounds like the Heaven is a Place on Earth, that song, you know? It's kind of like a takeoff on that, I think, that kind of rhythm or that kind of melody. So yeah, that's how this segment ends. So, you know, thoughts on the whole thing, top to bottom, if you have them.
I mean, match itself wasn't really, you know, a whole lot to write home about it. And like I said, the finish looked really weird and awkward. But you know, of course, the Joe Hendry stuff is always going to be funny and entertaining because he's Joe freaking Hendry.
That's right. Hey, you said his name and he didn't appear, so I'm starting to wonder though. I don't know if I believe now. Well, maybe Moose will just show him this episode and then he'll get with it.
I hope he keeps going with this gimmick of like making these short music video disses about his opponents. That's funny.
Yes. Well, yeah, that's what he used to do. I mean, there was a time when he was like in Ring of Honor and MLW and stuff, like he had a song for every single opponent every night. Like he would come down singing about his opponent, I thought. That was his whole thing. So I'm glad to see he's getting back into it because it's entertaining. But yeah. Anything else?
Nah, let's keep her going.
All right. Fat Eddie and Alicia nod at each other backstage. That's how they get ready for the title match. She puts his jacket on and they both look at each other and nod. Have you ever seen that scene in Johnny Dangerously where the guys are all like nodding at each other? All right. It's kind of like that. And then we get Moose, who's doing wall push-ups. And this is the other, you know, the lights were more subdued here, but they were definitely there. They were just off screen and like below and to the right of the shot. But they were definitely there. And didn't need to be there. But anyway, the major players come back and they're like, you know, hey, did you see what just happened out there? And he's like, I was getting ready for my match. What? Just the way he said it. So perfect. This is why Moose is the greatest. So anyway, yeah, he didn't see it. And they were like, you know, they basically said, we agree that there's a Joe Hendry problem and we're going to take him out. And Moose just smiles like, you know, as they walk off, like, hey, it worked again kind of deal. So there we go. That's our Moose sighting, at least until the main event. But I'll always take a Moose where I can get it. So yeah, anything to mention on this?
Nah, Moose is continuing to be the best performer on the roster.
That's right. All right, now here's a match: Jonathan Gresham versus Sheldon Jean or Jean or whatever. I don't know. This was just a get over match, kind of like the good hands were. You know, Gresham plays around with this guy for a little bit until he gets irritated, and then he fucking breaks his knee, gives him a forearm to the neck, and pins him. It was like the most like unceremonious wrestling win I've seen in a long time. If it weren't such a work, I would think it was a shoot. Because it'd be like if someone stiffed you in a match and you were like, fuck this, I'm taking this dude out, and then you just pin him. But it wasn't. It was clearly a work. But the work was that, you know, Gresham got irritated. So he had that spot where it was like going for like a drop toe hold, and he like grabbed the guy's leg and he like laced his hands around the knee and just pulls, and the guy goes down screaming, and then he like gives him a forearm in the back of the neck, and then that's it. So strong win for Jonathan Gresham against a guy we've never seen before. What'd you think?
I mean, I liked the character work of Sheldon, and I think he's somebody who definitely gets it, except for the selective leg selling that a lot of the young guys like to do these days.
That's right. So finally we have our main event, which is the Golden Six Shooter, where you get Moose and Swan and Sabin versus the guys who don't get an entrance, which is Rhino, Eddie, and Sammy. Rhino comes out first. Well, he goes out first. And then PCO comes out with music.
With music, of course.
But the refs and security stop him, and Eddie gets a small package. So this is a thing I've seen in wrestling twice recently, where you have a guy that's coming out with entrance music, and then you get a bunch of guys trying to hold him back. So if he's not, so what if they actually, you know, like here they succeeded in holding PCO back. The other time was Braun Breaker, and they didn't. Like he fought through them and got out there. So it's like, so you know, but the whole point is, if you're clearly showing that this guy's not supposed to be here, why would anybody play their music? That's the disconnect that we have. So anyway,
does not make sense.
Does not make sense. We have so Eddie gets the small package. Unbelievably, Moose spears Chris Sabin and pins him.
I know, he pins 98 Goldberg, give him the entire match.
He didn't even tase him or anything like that. Just straight up. So then Rich Swann pins Moose with some modified victory roll thing. And then Diener comes out and he tells Callahan to take Swann out. But then he ends up beating Sammy with a 450 splash. And then they go to actually do something to Rich Swann, but then Yuya Uemura and Josh Alexander and Frankie Kazarian all come out to help before the design can take it too far. And we kind of go off the air with those guys, you know, with their head held high. Rich Swann is the number one contender, and his friends helped him, even though he's going to take on one of those friends. It's a match he's been wanting. He's been trying to get this match, and he finally got it. So yeah, that's the end of Impact.
Although, considering, you know, Alexander's history of, I think he's not getting personal when he wrestles, when he defends the title against his friends, I think Rich will be okay.
Yeah, it'd probably be fine.
You never see, like, outside of like Bully and Moose, like you never really saw Josh's title programs get personal because the heels never made it personal except for those two.
Yeah, so it should be good. All right, well, that's our show. I know I said we got some extra time, but I think I'm going to cut it short this evening. So let's just tell the people where they can find us and get on out of here.
You can find me on Twitter at TransArchistTia, as well as Twitch at Miss Tia the Transarchist, and every Monday here at Hameen Media Group for the Impact Attack with my buddy the Vet. Every Monday, and I enjoy it. Whoop, whoop. That's right. Every Monday. And you can find me at Opinion Haver on all the social media platforms. You can find me on Hameen Media Group at all the shows. You can find me on Channel Attitude everywhere. It's quite interesting 2023 so far, and I like where it's heading.
like to see new, fresh things coming up, and I'm excited to be a part of them. Of course, you can check out. Don't forget, check out Stevie Richards' Big Fitness Show every week on YouTube, right after the Next Level Wrestling review, which you can also find me on. And you can don't forget to check out Wrestling with Rip Rogers every Friday, live Q&As, and new episodes drop on, I think, Mondays. So yeah, that's it. That's pretty much it. For Brandon, I'm the vet, and I don't have a sign-off line.